What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the PFF NFL show. Trevor, Sikkema, Dalton, Wasserman here with you guys to do a lot of things here on this show. Preview Week 10 in the NFL, as we always do here on a Wednesday. But Dalton, the trade deadline has come and gone, and we've talked some about some of the big trades that happened on Tuesday, but we'll dig into more of that. We'll even throw in some mock drafts here for a couple of these teams that maybe they're not exactly playing for the win at this point of their season, but we got a lot to get to. How you doing, my friend?
We're good. We're good. After a hectic day yesterday, it feels like we can breathe a little bit. And amidst all the trade talk and salary cap and future drafts and everything else, Trev, for the most part here, it is still about who's winning and losing these football games on the way towards the postseason, right? We got 14 really good games to preview, and look, some of them we're going to mess around. Like you mentioned, get into mock drafts a little bit, but there's still a lot of big games to be played, and now we're heading into the home stretch of the season.
I am one game up on you in the series standing. I am 89, 45, and 1. You know how much I love saying and 1.
And 1.
And then you are 88, 46, and 1. So I've got one game in hand here. We disagree on a couple of these games. I feel like we might disagree the most this week as we're going through all of our previews. We're going to preview both sides of the ball. We're going to interact with the chat. Shout out to everybody who is in the show right off the bat. But hey, let's start the show with some trade discussion thoughts. We talked yesterday when it dropped and freaked out about it, to be honest, with the Quinnen Williams. Well, it was first the Sauce Gardner trade, and you and I talked about that. We talked about Rashid Shaheed a little bit. We talked about Jacoby Myers going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we've talked about those trades. You and Max talked about the Quinnen Williams trade and sort of what that meant. Is there anything else from a trade deadline perspective that maybe a move that was made that we didn't hit on yet, or maybe some moves that weren't made, right? Because yesterday was all about talking about the moves that were made. Were there any moves that were not made that surprised you in the NFL trade deadline?
I think when you look at moves not made, to me, you still look at the New York Jets, actually, and Breece Hall is still a New York Jet, Jermaine Johnson, right. Quincy Williams, those guys are still Jets. And look, there were offers on the table, especially for Hall and Johnson. The rumors are that the Kansas City Chiefs had an offer of a fourth-round pick out there for Breece Hall, but Darren Muji and the Jets were insistent that they get a third, and you saw that even with their big trades. They're going to get fair or better value for these trades. There were a couple offers on the table for Jermaine Johnson from the 49ers and from the Bears, who really need pass rush help, but they didn't satisfy the second round asking price. So Darren Muji, I think it's a very interesting approach where he could have sold off everybody from this team, especially on the defensive side of the ball, but there's still good young football players, especially when you talk about Hall and Johnson, that could help him for the next 2, 3, 4 years if you do re-sign them in the offseason. Hall's in the last year of his contract, Johnson going into one more, but I think when you look at it from that angle, he didn't feel the need to trade these guys unless they got fair or better value. I think they certainly got fair value in the Gardner trade, and I don't know about you, Trev. I really feel like they won the Quinnen Williams trade.
Yeah, I think, honestly, for where the Jets are and what their both short and long-term outlook is, I think they won both of those trades. I think the value, again, getting what you got out of the Quinnen Williams trade, I think that one is a little bit easier to say it's a win. And even though you're giving up Sauce Gardner, one of the best cornerbacks in the game, you're getting 2 first-round picks back. I mean, that's quarterback or pass rusher type of return that you're getting there. So it hurts to lose a player of his caliber, but the Jets clearly are not a great team right now, and selling off those probably the most talented players that they have on their team, depending on where you have Garrett Wilson in that conversation, the team was not going to look similar next year anyway. So if these guys weren't part of your plans in any way, shape, or form, it makes sense to get something for them. That's also why I am a little surprised that they didn't move Breece, because maybe they just didn't want to give the Kansas City Chiefs more talent. I don't know. Maybe that's what it was. But Darren Muji, he comes from the Denver Broncos, so maybe he's like, nah, I'm not just going to give this guy away to the Kansas City Chiefs here. But a 4th-round pick compared to a 3rd-round pick. Obviously, it's a full round, and I think that this was more about standing your ground in terms of your value of what you thought of a player, but it's also a little bit like Miami. We need to talk about the Miami Dolphins, too, and I kind of rope them into this conversation because they move on from Jalen Phillips. I can understand them not moving on from Jalen Waddle. That one I totally get. But Bradley Chubb still being on this roster, it doesn't really do anything for you. And I think that you're probably going to move on from Bradley Chubb this offseason anyways. And the same thing with Breece Hall. It felt like ever since Aaron Glenn got to New York, Breece Hall's spot on this roster. And who he represented and what he represented within the offense, I should say, was sort of up for debate and up in the air, to where I would be floored if they re-signed Breece Hall at this point, especially with him on Twitter, basically saying like, okay, like you're trading all my friends, you're trading all the good players. I want out of here. The NFL shelf life for a running back isn't very long anyways, and so to me, that's the one where I go, okay, not bending the knee to just give anything away for Jermaine Johnson, who we were told that there was an offer on the table for him, and I get that one. I don't as much get the Breece Hall one, outside of just saying, hey, I'm not going to be known as a GM around the NFL that is just going to cave when it comes to the value that I have set for my players. So I can understand the principle side of it there, but I really would have thought that, all things considered, Breece Hall would be on a different team today.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, and it still makes me then wonder if there is a possibility. He's still only 24 years old, so it's not like you can't get a few more years out of him. I do wonder if there is a possibility where they go, you know what, he's played well this year behind this offensive line that we built in the offseason, 2 young tackles, all of that. Maybe he is a guy that we can, kind of think of as, if you think about that Lions offense and what they've done with Montgomery and Gibbs over there, get a second guy in there, or hope Braylon Allen gets healthier, keep drafting backs and create that committee. But Breece Hall's shown he can be a workhorse as long as he's not fumbling the football or dropping it in the passing game. I think he can be one of the better, obviously, maybe even one of the best two-way backs in football behind this offensive line. So if they're trying to build it that way and still have a functional offense, at least running the ball next year, then Hall could be a big part of that. I think it may be a little closer at this point than you think, but I do think there is a part of this where Muji's just going, listen, these guys are young enough and good enough where they can still help me. I don't have to trade anything. I don't have to do anything. You have to. He's making the buyers go out and go, okay, you have to live up to this price that I'm asking you to pay, right? And if you don't do it, I'm not just going to sell guys off just to do it, especially young players.
Yeah. Broncos not doing anything at the trade deadline either. There was some talk of them maybe being in the wide receiver market. They don't get involved there. Obviously, Olave doesn't get moved. Jalen Waddle doesn't get moved. Jacoby did, but he ended up going to Jacksonville. And I feel like Rashid Shaheed probably would have been the guy that the Broncos would have been targeting. He ends up going to the Seattle Seahawks. So Broncos not doing anything, Chiefs not doing anything, Bills not doing anything. Did any of those teams? The Chargers made a last-second move trading for Trevor Penning there, as their offensive line is so beat up. So I don't hate that move. I really don't. I don't know how much it moves the needle for me, to be honest. But I don't hate them at least saying, hey, we've got a quarterback who's playing incredibly well right now. Let's try to do whatever we can to make sure that offensive line is as good as it could possibly be, maybe getting into the postseason there for them. So the only team that I'm really surprised wasn't more active was Miami, to be honest. So the rest of them I can understand. They're contenders. They're not just going to give away their draft picks for anything. And clearly we kind of have learned that there may have been some offers in there, just not as rich as the sellers would have wanted them to be. So I'm most surprised with the Dolphins' inactivity, but what do you think?
The Dolphins, yes, and I think the other big name for me is we didn't see Trey Hendrickson get traded from Cincinnati, and I after the last 2 losses that they've had, and he was hurt last week, and their defense obviously is what's costing them games right now, and that's even with Hendrickson on the field for as great a pass rusher as he is. I'm just surprised that they held firm on what seemed to be a first-round asking price for him for a 30-year-old pass rusher who is extremely good. Don't get me wrong. He would have changed the complexion of somebody's defense had he gotten traded, but I'm just surprised the Bengals are just standing pat as well, because after losing these 2 games to the Jets and the Bears, it's painfully clear that defensively they just can't get it done. They're not going to the postseason with this team, and Hendrickson is likely on the way out in the offseason. I don't really get that part either of the Bengals hanging on to Trey.
Yeah, I mean, it only makes sense if you're going to sign him long-term, and obviously he's going to be a major player for you in the next couple of years, right? Like while you have the wide receivers, when Joe Burrow gets healthy again, this makes sense if you feel as though it is much more likely that you're going to give Trey Hendrickson what he wants in a deal this offseason than it is to let him go. Because if that's the case, then I go, okay, like I can understand you standing firm on a first-round pick or nothing. But if it's up in the air at all whatsoever, and you're going to lose Trey Hendrickson, the best that you're going to get is a comp pick back of a 3rd-round pick. at that point, yeah, you go, okay, well, why aren't you moving him for a second then? If there's any possibility that that could be the case, then I can understand, especially with the season basically gone for Cincinnati now at this point. I mean, you're playing a lot of young guys anyways. Clearly, it's a building year in a lot of ways while Joe Burrow gets healthy, and you're kind of trying to hit the ground running next season. And again, keeping Trey makes sense if you are going to sign him and he's going to be a part of a team that you're going to think is going to compete for the top of the division in a playoff spot next year when Joe Burrow's healthy. But if it's 50-50, if it's up in the air, if it's like, yeah, maybe he'll be back, maybe he won't. Yeah, I would have dealt him for a second-round pick yesterday. So we will see. The time will tell, and I think the contract will mean a lot for the Trey Hendrickson situation there. Let's dive into these previews here because we got a lot of games to get to. Thursday Night Football. We got a divisional game between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Denver Broncos here. So you want to start talking about the Raiders, or you want to start with the Broncos?
I mean, I think when you look at this Raiders offense, obviously you have Ashton Jinty trying to get things going in the run game, and he adds as some dynamic play as a receiver as well. But realistically, we saw this last week against Jacksonville in the overtime game. This offense is all about Brock Bowers. You have to find a way to contain Brock Bowers. And look, the Jaguars really never did that. They escaped with a 1-point win in overtime over the Raiders, but he was unstoppable last week, and he's been unstoppable for a year and a half. A 90.5 receiving grade this year. He missed a couple of games, but still easily leading the league in receiving grade among tight ends. And I find it interesting that you don't really have a way, just one way to contain him, right? With a certain type of coverage. One of two tight ends in the NFL in the top 10 in receiving grade against both man and zone coverage. The other being Dalton Kincaid from the Buffalo Bills. And the Broncos against tight ends are just 25th in coverage grade. Those middle of the field defenders, especially lately, have given up some big games. The Giants tight ends really hurt them. Dalton Schultz had a good week against them last week, despite the Texans' struggles at quarterback. So I think that's priority number one right now. When you're playing against this Raiders team with Brock Bowers back healthy, you have to find a way to get 2 and 3 sets of eyes on this guy so he doesn't take the game over the way he did against Jacksonville last week.
Yeah, the Raiders have to just become much more multi-dimensional than what they are right now, because you're right. Brock is an incredible talent. There's no doubt about it, but you have to be more than just Brock Bowers. He was almost enough for them to win it at the end of overtime last week, but you've just got to have more that you can lean on there. The offensive line's got to play a little bit better. You obviously have to stay balanced with Genty, and Genty got involved in the receiving game as well, but it's sort of ironic that you're trading away Jacoby Myers and you're also asking the rest of the offense to complement Brock Bowers somehow. And so we'll see what they're able to do there. You know, are they getting Jack Bech more involved? Are they leaning into more heavy tight end sets like we've seen them do throughout this season? But for me on the Broncos side of things, it really just is how Bo Nix starts these games. 3 of his 4 lowest first quarter passing grades this season have come within the last 3 weeks. And so this has been an issue for him recently where, you know, we talked about the end of the Giants game where that was crazy. And, you know, last week how they were able to really come on and play well in the fourth quarter. Nix was against the Houston Texans. But the way that they've been starting games has not been good. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I can't remember which opponent this was. Was it against the Giants? Can't remember which game this was, but his receivers had 3 drops. So, okay, like that's not necessarily helping the passing grade. It's not hurting him. It's not punishing him, but you go, okay, well, if those passes are completed, like does the grade look a little bit better? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, just because of the overall result. But for the most part, he is somebody who has not been reliable in the first quarter. And I think that it's not really one thing. I went back and I watched all of his first quarter throws, and there's nothing that I could really pinpoint. Like, there were a couple of times where I go, okay, you're looking too deep down the field. Like, you're not taking the stuff that's easy. But then there were other games when I feel like I wanted him to open it up a little bit more. So whatever that balance is, you know, having the right script to start the game for those scripted drives, if you will, and really just being able to get him in rhythm and execute things well, have a good plan for, okay, what's the second and third drive looks like? How are we building off of that? Because right now it seems way too erratic. It seems way too inconsistent. He's either, you know, not looking deep down the field and he's playing too conservative, or it feels like he's way too amped up and he's only looking deep, only trying to hit a big shot and a big time throw. So the balance of Bo Nix in the first quarter is really what I'm looking at the most in this game. Ultimately, I do think the Broncos win this one. It's in Denver. They're the team that's playing better. They've been more consistent. They got the better record this season. but I think that it could be close. I'm going to go Broncos 24, Raiders 20 here. What do you got?
I think the Broncos have a lot of advantages here. I think, number one, their defensive line is really going to control the game against the Raiders' offensive line that has struggled more than we thought it would, especially at that left tackle spot there with Stone Forsythe. The other thing, too, is I think the Broncos are going to get this run game going. The Raiders are really struggling in the middle of their defense, especially at linebacker with Devin White and Landon Roberts as their two main linebackers there in run defense. I think you could see J.K. Dobbins and maybe even R.J. Harvey have a big day as well. I like the Broncos a lot in this game, 28-14.
We've got an international game this week. The international games are kicking back up. 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. The Atlanta Falcons take on the Indianapolis Colts in Berlin, Germany. So switching countries here for the international game. You talk about the Colts, you talk about the Falcons here, Dalton.
I'm going to go with the Falcons, and their offense, their passing game is predicated way too much on two guys. One is Bijan Robinson, and the other is Drake London. Now, London's been so good this year when he's out there that, yes, you want to center your passing game around him. An 89 receiving grade this year, third best in the NFL. He's seventh in yards per route run, third in contested catches, which makes sense considering his frame, and he's run about 30% of his routes from the slot, and he's got the third best slot receiving grade, so he can move around the formation much, so it's not a lot, I should say. Here's the problem is that the Falcons' other wide receivers this season have a 52 receiving grade. That's basically the Cleveland Browns. So you have Drake London and not much else happening on the outside. Bijan moves around the formation. Kyle Pitts gives you a little bit, but the wide receivers outside of London have really let him down this year, which makes for the interesting storyline now with the Colts. With Sauce Gardner coming in, they're saying if he clears concussion protocol that he's going to play in this game. And if it was me and I'm Lou Anarumo, I'm going, listen, kid, I know you don't know the whole playbook. You've only been here a few days. You've got number 5, and we will work the rest around you because we're not afraid of the rest of these guys. I got to think the shadow coverage is coming with Sauce Gardner and Drake London if he is playing. And if Sauce wins that battle, I really don't know where the Falcons' passing game would go from there.
I agree with you. Sauce in this game would be huge. And I know that Sauce hasn't played as consistent in coverage over the last couple of years than he had the first 2 years in the league, but this is still an incredibly talented corner. And even if it's on a short week with him being on a new team, if Lou Anarumo says, hey, we're going to build a defensive structure around it, you guard that guy. That is something that I feel like Sauce Gardner has the ability to be able to do. And it's coming off of a week where Drake London looked like the most unstoppable receiver in the NFL. And so you know that he's feeling himself. You know he's got that sort of momentum. So what a battle that would be if Sauce gets to play in this game. On the other side of things, well, actually, I am going to stick on that side of the ball because I do think that that's what matters most here. The Colts, they're going to bounce back, right? They had a down game against the Steelers. They only lost by 7 points despite turning the ball over 6 times. Like, that offense is going to bounce back. I can't really take a ton from what we saw last week against Pittsburgh because it really was just a really good defensive line in Pittsburgh and a motivated defense being very opportunistic and forcing the takeaways and everything against the Colts. So there's not a lot of similarities between how the Colts played last week versus how they've played throughout the rest of the season. So at this point in time, you kind of have to just treat it as the one-off that it was. Now, if they struggle again this week against the Falcons, now you have some things where when we do, the recap show and the preview show next week, we'll have tangible things to be able to focus on. But as of right now, I think it's going to be a bounce-back week for the Colts offense. And so you talked about the matchup with Drake London and what he could mean in this game. With Michael Penix Jr., something that I watched him struggle with over the last couple of weeks was playing under pressure. And so I looked up a couple of numbers and I was like, well, is he struggling against the blitz? Is he struggling against just like pressure in general? What does it look like for him? And actually, his grades aren't good against pressure, like overall pressure. They have not been good this year. And in fact, the 2 weekly performances in which a Falcons quarterback has played the best under pressure and graded above a 70, those were the Kirk Cousins games when he came into the game. And so Kirk has been able to play well under pressure because he's getting the ball out of his hands very quickly, so pressure's not really affecting him. But on Michael Penix's side of things, he has, not always, but for a good amount of time this season, looked hesitant, not looked confident when it comes to pressure. Now, it hasn't been pressure against the blitz. When he has been facing the blitz, Michael Penix has been able to identify maybe pre-snap like, okay, this is where I feel like the pressure is coming from. And he's been able to throw into where that pressure is because there's less guys over there. There's less coverage. So he's actually been handling the blitz decently well. It's when teams rush 3 or 4 and get pressure on him with more guys in coverage, that's when he has really struggled. And, as fate would have it in this game, the Colts are number 2 in the NFL behind only the Seattle Seahawks at total pressure generated without the blitz. So it's just going to be an interesting game for Michael Penix. Is he better against that 4-man rush that he's going to see a lot from Indianapolis with a lot more guys in coverage? That's really what I think is the big X factor in this game, because if he could play well under pressure, then I think they've really got a shot. But I think it's a big bounce back week for the Colts here. They've been playing too well. They've been rolling. I'm going Colts 33, Falcons 17. I just wonder if this is after a really nice week from the Falcons against the Patriots, in which they could have beaten one of the better teams in the NFL. I just think this team is really up and down, and I wonder if we're going to get a stinker of a week here from the Falcons.
I actually think I have it closer. I think this could be a high-scoring game, depending on if the Colts have Sauce Gardner and how good he looks in a new defense. But I'm with you. I think the Falcons are a bit thin. I think their top-end weapons, obviously, Bijan and Drake London, can keep them in this game as long as Penix is making the throws. But I also think this is going to be a bounce-back week for the Colts run game, too. This Falcons defense has not looked the same, especially in the run game, since Divine Diablo got hurt, the linebacker. They've had J.D. Bertrand filling in for him. He's been really struggling. So I think it could be a big day for Jonathan Taylor. I'm going to take a high-scoring game, but I'm taking the Colts also 31-27.
Walt in the chat is saying that this could be a trap game for the Colts. And then made sure to let us know, make no mistake, which is his signature line. The Falcons could win this game. All right,
so they certainly could. Look, when they're hot on offense, they get really, really hot. And I think there is a scenario where that does happen, but it does come down to their best players playing their best because they don't have a ton of depth.
I hope we get this Austin London matchup. I really do. The Patriots, the team that the Falcons just played, going up against a divisional foe of the Atlanta Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This game is down in Tampa. You want to start talking about the Patriots side of things or Tampa side of things?
So I'm going to go with Tampa's defense. And as we know, Todd Bowles is notorious for making quarterbacks wilt under the pressure of all his blitz packages and simulated pressures and rotations and just everything that comes with a Todd Bowles run defense. And Drake May has to go out there and deal with this, especially with his young offensive line, the young left side of that offensive line with Will Campbell and Jared Wilson there at left tackle and left guard. So when you look at the Bucs, the real key to this is Todd Bowles and his ability to confuse Drake May and force him into mistakes. They blitz at a top 5 rate in the NFL. When they do blitz, they get pressure at a top 5 rate in the NFL. But New England so far, considering the youth on their offense, has done a really good job, A, of picking up blitzes, and then B, Drake May reacting to them. So now, I mean, when he sees extra pressure, part of that 8th ranked PFF grade there is the fact that he does take off and run, right? He's an athlete. If he doesn't have an answer to beat the blitz, he can still beat you outside the pocket and get north and south as a scrambler as well. I think that could play a big factor in it, and how Todd Bowles is going to keep him in the pocket and prevent him from making plays either with his arm or his legs outside the numbers. So I think when you look at just that matchup, anytime you've got a first or second year quarterback going up, especially with an offensive line that's very young, especially on that left side, anytime you have Todd Bowles going against a first or second year quarterback, this is the matchup you look at. How can Drake May handle that in big situations? And if the Bucs run defense holds up on early downs against Travion Henderson, against if Ramondre Stevenson is playing as well, and Drake May's in those 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8 obvious passing situations, it's going to become him and the pass protection against Todd Bowles. Whoever wins that matchup is at a huge advantage in this game.
Yeah, I really do think that the chess matchup between Drake May or Josh McDaniels as well, just the preparation, how confident he is going to be, versus Todd Bowles and giving him some looks that he is not expecting to see is the matchup in this game. But on the other side of things, I think that Baker Mayfield versus the man in the mirror is also a major matchup here, because when you've looked at him over the last couple of weeks, he's kind of cooled down a little bit from that MVP momentum that he had through the first 4 weeks of the season. And when you look at his numbers and you look at his performance, it's not like he wasn't putting the ball in harm's way when it came to turnover-worthy plays. He still had more than one turnover-worthy play, I believe, in each of the first 4 games of the season. He had a good amount of turnover-worthy plays. Dalton, the difference was he just had more big-time throws. Like, he had at least 2 big-time throws in each of the first 5 games, and he had 3 big-time throws, and I believe 4 of them. So, yes, he was putting the ball in harm's way, but he was also a gunslinger, and he was creating those big passes, those big plays down the field. The last 3 games that they have played, he's had just 1 big-time throw one game, 2 the next, and then 1 the following game, their last game that they played before the bye week. And so when you see that, the turnover-worthy plays were kind of still there. You know, it was about a turnover-worthy play per game average that he had. So the turnover-worthy play stuff hasn't really changed. Like, Baker has been the same quarterback. The difference has been he hasn't been hitting on as many of those big throws over the last couple of weeks. Now, no Chris Godwin, no Mike Evans goes into those things, and he's not going to have, it looks like, neither of those wide receivers. Obviously, Mike Evans he's not going to have, but Chris Godwin not practicing in the early part of the season. We're recording this episode here on a Wednesday. No Bucky Irving at practice either, but Luke Gedeke was back at practice, so getting him back will be huge, and there's still a chance that Bucky Irving could play in this game, but as of right now, he is not practicing, and so to me, it'll kind of come down to, you know what you get with Baker Mayfield. Like, he is just going to be a hot and cold. You take the good, you take the bad, but you've got to have the good with the bad, and I think that has been something that has held this offense back a little bit over the last couple of weeks, and so I think this is a toss-up game. I truly do. It as it often does, comes down to the quarterback position, and there's not a ton of evaluation that you have to do outside of that because of how impactful it is. If Drake May can remain confident against a Todd Bowles defense, I think the Patriots have a really good chance to go into Tampa and win this game. But if Baker Mayfield completes 2-3 big-time throws in this game, with them at home and the way that their defense has been playing throughout this season, albeit through injuries, I think they've got a good shot. With this being a toss-up, I'll be a homer here. I'll go Bucks 28, Patriots 23, because I think that this just could be two sides of the coin here with what happens in this game.
I'm with you. I think it could go either way, and it could come down to which team can supplement their quarterback just enough with the run game going against two pretty good run defenses. New England's has been hot lately with Robert Spillane and those guys, and the Bucks' run defense has been solid all year. I'm going to take the Bucks also in a high-scoring game. I think we could get maybe the most fun game of the weekend here. I have Tampa Bay 31, New England 28.
Walt is saying that Robert Spillane, his guy, who he's obviously really missing in Las Vegas, will get 20 tackles in this game.
Wow, 20.
20.
You don't see 20 too often. Man. But if anybody would do it, it would be him.
It might actually be. You'd really have to get the running backs involved in the passing game. Just, some of those dump off passes for Spillane to go get. But
I think it was a couple weeks ago when they played Cleveland, and I was watching that. I thought he had 20 tackles in that game. He was just everywhere.
I wonder what his career high in a single game is. Maybe you could look that up as I talk to the good people about financial advice for families, specifically helping out your kids. Parenting, it's filled with all sorts of high-pressure decisions. Sometimes you don't know if, you're making the right decisions financially for your family, for your kids, but here is a decision that you can make right now that'll give them a great financial head start, and that's opening up a UGMA Kids Investment Account from Fabric. Fabric by Gerber Life was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan for and manage your family's financial path. With this Kids Investment Account from Fabric, you can start investing in your child's future today. Kids can't invest while they're minors, but a UGMA Kids Investment Account allows you to invest on their behalf. It gives their investments so much more time to grow. The funds can be used for anything. When they're younger, maybe it's books, summer camps, sports, after-school activities, tuition, whatever that looks like. And then maybe when they're a little bit older, you're helping them buy a first car, a first house, start a business, whatever that looks like. You're going to have the ability to do it. Whole thing is online. Setting up an account could take you as little as just 5 minutes. You can get started with investing with as little as $1 a day, and then you just manage your child's account and monitor those investments right from your phone. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Start investing in your child today at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That is meetfabric.com/PFFNFL, MEET, fabric.com/PFFNFL. The portfolios are managed by Fort Washington Investment Advisors Incorporated. Additional services provided by Apex Cleaning Corporation. All investing is subject to risk. You can learn more at meetfabric.com.
All right, I have your answer, Trev.
Mike Kennedy, shout out Mike Kennedy in the chat, also has the answer, and I'm curious if it's the one, if he got it right.
Well, from what I'm seeing here, I've got in his very last game as a Las Vegas Raider, 16 tackles against the Chargers in Week 18 last season.
16
man,
tackles.
No wonder Walt misses him so much, man. He went out with a bang. Jeez.
Get the ice bath ready, baby. 16 tackles, a lot of tackles. The Baltimore Ravens traveling to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. Both these teams coming off much-needed wins here for their seasons. You want to talk about the Ravens or the Vikings side of things?
Well, let's talk about Lamar Jackson. Why not, Trevor? Okay. That's always a good subject, isn't it? Right? We talk about Lamar Jackson you can never really do it enough, right? I mean, now that he's back, he's got to drive this comeback from this team being 1-5 and get him back to the postseason. But I think a big thing here is that Lamar's been extremely effective with play action this season. He's been effective with play action his entire career, and that's not changing right now. And I really thought that was where he controlled the game against the Miami Dolphins last week when the Dolphins got in heavy fronts on early downs. Todd Monken called play action. He really hurt the Dolphins with the tight ends. And this is Lamar Jackson this season with play action. 89.9 passing grades, outstanding. Top 5 in yards per attempt. Top 5 in adjusted completion rate. How about 93.5% adjusted completion rate there? And attacking down the field, an 11.5-yard average depth of target. So not only are they getting, obviously, certain teams like to get into the flat and roll things out. No, this team gets north and south in the passing game with play action. I expect more of the same in this game on early downs. Minnesota, you don't want to fail on those early downs. You want to give yourself optimal looks because if you get into 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, Brian Flores is coming with all the blitz packages. But I expect the Ravens once again and Todd Monken to try to control these fronts. If they get 5 down on the line, expect those play action looks, expect those shots to Mark Andrews. Isaiah Likely got going last week. You will get Derrick Henry involved in this game at some point, but this play action passing game right now has become the most dangerous weapon for Baltimore this season on offense.
Yeah, and on the other side of things, for the Vikings, I think they've got to play better on the offensive line specifically. Brian O'Neill struggled last week against the Detroit Lions, and, he had that MCL sprain that he suffered earlier this year. Yeah, he's back out in the lineup, but you don't know how much he's playing through pain there, and it was tough. It was tough for him last week going up against Aiden Hutchinson and the rest of that group. So he struggled. The offensive line's got to play better. Aaron Jones gave him a little bit of a spark, so that's good. They kind of need that out of the backfield. But specifically, it's all about J.J. McCarthy, right? And for as much as, yes, the Vikings got the win and McCarthy had some nice plays in that win, I'm still nervous about him. It's not like you look at last week against the Detroit Lions and it's a win. I want them to celebrate that. They got it. It's tough to win in this league. It's tough to beat a team like the Detroit Lions. When you look at McCarthy, there are still things to be a little nervous about as we're kind of continuing to go through the season now with him as the starter. 35.7 pressure to sack ratio last week. That is still very, very high. He has a 38.9% pressure to sack ratio this season. His time to throw is over 3.1. It's 3.11 this year. And he has fumbled the ball 4 times in the last 3 games, in the 3 games that he has played. And so it's just, he's got to take care of the football. The processing has to be faster, and specifically, it's got to be faster with recognizing pressure and knowing what to do afterwards. Does the ball have to come out of your hands quickly? Do you have to get out of the pocket? Are you throwing it away? Where's your hot reads? All of that kinds of stuff. It feels like McCarthy is very much still learning from that, and that's not the worst thing in the world. Obviously, his entire rookie season was missed, and so this is basically his rookie year. All that to say, though, he's going up against Lamar Jackson. I'm going to take Lamar Jackson. I think that it's just going to be quarterback play that's going to be the difference in this game. I think that there's a chance that if McCarthy is still at the percentages that he has been at when it comes to dealing with pressure and taking sacks and not being able to make decisions quickly enough, I think that this could be a little bit more of a blowout than some people believe. I got Ravens 28, Vikings 13. I think that they're going to win this one pretty easily. I really do.
I have it closer to what we have right with the spread on the screen there. I have it Ravens 24-20 because the big thing about getting McCarthy under pressure is that you have to be able to apply that pressure, and the Ravens have just not done that this year. They have the 4th worst pass rush grade in the NFL. Who is it that's going to step up? Is it the trade acquisition, Draymond Jones? Is it Mike Green off the edge? Right now, look, they didn't come into this season thinking halfway through that the big nose guard, Travis Jones, would be their leader with 15 pressures. Is it Kyle Hamilton blitzing more often now that he's been playing in the box a lot? So I think they still have to find ways to apply that pressure to McCarthy in order to force him into those mistakes. But I'm with you. Lamar Jackson's the guy we trust most on this field. I do think it is going to be close in Minnesota, and Brian Flores can still find a way to make it difficult for Jackson, but I'll take the Ravens to pull it out.
The Jacksonville Jaguars traveling to Houston to take on the Texans. I could not find anything on C.J. Stroud this morning when I was researching this game. I, at this point, would be very surprised if he plays. So I'm thinking that Davis Mills is going to be the starting quarterback for the Texans in this one as they're hosting their divisional foe. You want to talk about the Jags or the Texans side of things?
I mean, even whether or not they have Stroud in this game, and we'll see if he can get out of concussion protocol in time. Look, this Texans defense has been awesome this year, no question, especially their pass defense. And something I want to focus on specifically is third down. They have been elite in their third down defense, which shouldn't surprise anybody. Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter off the edge, Derek Stingley, Kamari Lassiter, Jalen Petrie, Kalen Bullock, all those guys in the secondary. It's all of the pieces for an elite third down defense, and you see it right here. Third lowest third down conversion rate allowed, first in pass rush grade with those guys off the edge, especially Will Anderson leading the league in pass rush win rate overall, not just on third down, overall on defense, the second best grade. And the Jags are just 23rd in third down conversion rate this year. And with third and longs with them, it's very difficult because they don't throw the ball downfield very well right now. And a big thing in the first game was that actually both of these teams went 4 for 15 on third down in their first matchup. I think this is going to be more so for the Jaguars. You mentioned last week all the success they had on early downs against the Raiders. That's big time, but now you're taking a step up here with this Houston Texans defense. They're going to need to ride Travis Etienne on early downs and find positive plays to get themselves into more manageable third down situations, or just avoid them altogether, because you can't go 4 for 15 on third down again. And against this defense, you do not want to be in obvious passing situations, especially with Anderson and Hunter coming off the edge.
Yeah, I think that the main storyline here is just how the Jags are going to run the football, because they kind of go as their rushing game goes. You know, Trevor Lawrence can give them a handful of good plays throughout the game, but we've also seen that, okay, when it's fully in his hands, sometimes he delivers, sometimes he doesn't. And it's when the offense is truly balanced and complementary, that's the best version of this Jacksonville Jaguars team. For the Houston Texans, you mentioned it's kind of an obvious. You never want to be in those obvious pass rushing situations for them, because they've got two speed demons on the outside and they're just really good at collapsing the pocket. So how do you do that? Well, you got to run the football well. So I think that how the Jags run the football is fundamental to just what the result of this game is going to be, is simply from both standpoints. You've got to be able to not allow Houston to pin their ears back. And Houston is right around middle of the pack. I think they're 14th or 15th when it comes to overall run defense grade as a team. So obviously you would rather face that than, a top 3 pass rush unit in the NFL. So that to me just carries so much weight in this game. But so does Nico Collins, in my opinion, because especially if it's Davis Mills, he's going to want to run this passing offense through Nico Collins. And that's the direction that he's going to go. I know Dalton Schultz got a lot of targets and had a lot of yards last week, or at least a good chunk of what their total yardage was last week. He will be involved for them as well. But Nico Collins, above a 70.0 receiving grade against man coverage, against zone coverage. He's still the guy in this offense. Montaric Brown has been the top cover player for the Jacksonville Jaguars on the defensive side of the football, certainly with Travis Hunter now out. And he did get a 78.9 coverage grade last week, but that was against the Las Vegas Raiders, and that was against wide receivers. That wasn't against Brock Bowers, who it felt like Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty were the only thing the Raiders had going in the passing game, so he wasn't really being challenged by a difficult matchup from a receiver. If you go back the previous game that they had, that was against the Los Angeles Rams, and he really struggled. He had a 43.6 coverage grade against the Los Angeles Rams. Nico Collins, a lot closer to Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams than he is what the Raiders had. And so I think that the top cover player for the Jags struggling that much against the Rams makes me like this matchup with Nico Collins. And so I feel like the Texans are going to be able to move the ball decently well. This one is at home, so I think they have that going for them as well. But without C.J. Stroud, I got to go with the Jags here. 23-17 is my final score. If the Texans had C.J. Stroud, and if they get C.J. Stroud, I might give them the win here, but with too much uncertainty with Stroud, I got to go with the Jags.
Yeah, I'm just going to go into the pit kind of blind here and say that right now I trust the Texans defense more than I do the Jags defense. The Jaguars defense and their coverage especially has just not been as good as it was early in the year when they were forcing all those turnovers. You saw that in the second half of last week's game against the Rams when they were a 2-point conversion away from losing it. They couldn't control Brock Bowers at all. I'm not saying Dalton Schultz is going to have a Brock Bowers type game, but he could have a good game as well. And Nico Collins is always a problem, right? And I think the Texans are starting to spread the ball around better to all of their weapons. I'm going to take that Texans defense to win the battle this time, 20-16.
Some people in the chat are talking about, like, hey, does Jacoby Myers' presence, does that help out Bryant Thomas Jr.? Honestly, Sure, like it can. I think that there's the potential to, but at the end of the day, like I just think that Brian Thomas Jr. has to play better. He just has to play better individually. They already have Parker Washington, and you could argue that Jacoby Myers is an upgrade over Parker Washington, although that people who might scoff at that probably haven't been watching Parker Washington and how well he has been playing as a complementary piece for them this year. But Brian Thomas Jr. having more of an advantage now after the Myers trade, to me, is simply just about Brian Thomas Jr.
I think it is, and I think it's partially about Liam Cohen being more willing, because we talked about this with Travis Hunter earlier in there, but being more willing to use Brian Thomas in a vertical type of role, right? Where, yes, okay, now you have Jacoby Myers, a guy who's used to playing underneath and being in motion all the time, and Parker Washington's obviously a good slot threat, and you're working around not having your starting tight end, Brenton Strange, still, but I think part of that, too, is on Liam Cohen, and even when Travis Hunter gets back, the same thing. These guys have blazing speed and great ball skills. Let them use it downfield, and Trevor Lawrence has to make the throws, too. He's been struggling to throw downfield accurately as well. So I do think it's more of a group effort. Yes, Thomas has to play better, but Cohen's got to put the emphasis in to get vertical, because that's, to me, the one thing missing from this offense, and Lawrence has to execute as well.
Okay, so you went Texans in this game, right?
I'm in on it.
Okay, all right. We're different on that one. I got the Jags, you got the Texans. The New York Giants heading to the Chicago Bears. Bears coming off a big win. Highest graded single game of Caleb Williams' career last week. You want to talk about the Giants, or do you want to talk about the Bears here?
I'm going to go with the Giants offense, and I think something amongst all the playmaking that Jackson Dart has done since he's been the starter, I think when you look at his recent games, other than obviously that Saints game where they turned the ball over as a team 5 times, he's been really safe with the football too. I think the ball security to combo with the playmaking, that's how you get highly graded on our scale, is you make big plays and you don't turn the football over. He's only got 2 turnover-worthy plays in his last 4 games. That ball security, that's going to be crucial for this game, because look, the Bears are pretty low. They're bottom 10 in coverage grade. There's a lot of times they bend and don't break, or they make a lot of mistakes on the back end, but they're leading the NFL in takeaways. They're leading the NFL in interceptions. They have a plus 13 turnover margin. That's the best in the league. I think a lot of this is going to come down to, first and foremost, Jackson Dart and the Giants keeping themselves in this game on offense. If he continues with the good ball security that he's had lately, then they have a shot, because as long as you don't turn it over, this Bears defense is vulnerable. They traded for a pass rusher, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka from the Browns, because Dayo Odeyingbo is now out with a torn Achilles. So you might see him having to deal with Dennis Allen and a lot of the blitz packages and taking off running more, but I would rather have him running and scrambling, doing all that and making plays outside the pocket than turning the ball over. Lately, he's done a great job of protecting the football. He's going to need that in this game.
2 things on the other side of the ball when it comes to what the Bears were doing on the offensive side last week, and how the Giants better have an answer for it. One of them is with the Chicago Bears offensive line. Now, they were going up against a Cincinnati Bengals defensive line that is not good. Young, not good. It does not have a lot of impactful players there right now with how they're playing this season, and the numbers showed that. The Bears' offensive line last week, 93.7 run blocking grade. It's a big reason why we saw such a great output from Kyle Monangai. Not to take anything away from him, he was also a major factor in what he was able to do as a playmaker. Dalton, I don't know about you, but I watched a lot of Kyle Monangai games to Rutgers. There are a lot of things that he did well. Yards after contact, lowering the shoulder, the play strength that he had, the play balance, all that kinds of stuff. But I did not see a getaway type of an athlete. He played with more juice and explosiveness last week with the Chicago Bears than I think I saw for any single game that he played in college. So kudos to him. He did a great job taking advantage of that opportunity to be able to start. And we know that he's going to be somewhat involved in the rushing attack for them moving forward throughout the rest of the season. Bears 71.9 impact run blocking percentage going against a defense with the New York Giants that has a 46.0 run defense grade this season. That is not great. You've got good potential players to be good run defenders, but they haven't shown up and been able to do that. So that has to change. And then also converting the pressures that you get from a good defense, a talented defensive line, into sacks, or at least containing Caleb Williams. You and I watched that game last week, and as the Bears were playing it, we were like, boy, it sure looks like Caleb Williams looks right at home. It looks like he is wearing a Trojans jersey in this game with how he was able to scramble outside of the pocket. He plays alive, make throws deep down the field when he was veering towards the sideline. That's sort of vintage Caleb Williams. So the defensive line has to play a lot better in this game for New York, not only in run defense and holding their own on the line of scrimmage, but also in contain as they are trying to get after Caleb Williams. Are they able to bring him down or at least not let him break and get out to the sideline? The trends of these teams and really the trend of how Chicago played last week should make it so that I should pick the Bears here. But I kind of think that this is a game that's not going to make a lot of sense. And I lean more into how well Jackson Dart has been playing as of late when it comes to not putting the ball in harm's way. And I think he will have to in this game to outduel Caleb Williams a little bit. But Dalton, give me the Giants 24, Bears 23. Just because this feels like it could be one of those wacky games that doesn't make sense this week.
I mean, the Bears feels like the Bears play those games every week anyway. So you calling out nonsense in this exact game, I mean, that's kind of normal at that point. When nonsense becomes normal, that's Chicago. But no, I think I think the Bears leaning on this run game lately is big. And I know Caleb Williams did have his highest graded game, and he saved them from what would have been an awful loss against Cincinnati here against the Bengals. But I do think the base of this team now and Ben Johnson getting into the foundation of this run game with Monangai, if they have DeAndre Swift back, he's been good lately too, and then allowing Williams to work off play action in a much more normal setting, because before we got all that nonsense last week in the last 4 minutes, they were up 14 with the football with the run game dominating. I think Ben Johnson wants to keep that going. The Giants only have 2 starting players with run defense grades above 65 on their team. That's Kayvon Thibodeau and Javon Holland, the free safety. Not good enough yet in the front 7. I like the Bears' run game to control it. I think they come out with a win that they really need. They need to win this game and be 6-3 going into a difficult back end of their schedule. I have it weird score 28-22 Bears.
Walt's yelling at me in the chat. He's saying, you don't believe that, Trevor. Hey, week-to-week league. Week-to-week league, Walt. That's what the coaches say. I'm going to believe him. I'm going to take the Giants in this one just because. The New Orleans Saints traveling to Carolina to take on the Carolina Panthers here. 5-4 Carolina Panthers. Don't you forget it, Dalton. You want to start talking about the Panthers? You want to talk about the Saints?
Trevor, you know I would never forget about a Carolina Panthers team with a winning record.
We would never.
We would never forget about them. So we're going to talk about this defense. And look, there's places they've improved, and there's still a little bit they need to work on. The run defense has been better. There's times where it's wavered, right? Not a great game against the Buffalo Bills, but I think the run defense is certainly better than the historically poor performance they gave last year. The coverage has been better, right? Ejiro Evero in these zone coverages, Mike Jackson, J.C. Horn, Trayvon Merrick with an interception last week, right? I think you're looking at a secondary that's coming together a bit week to week. Now what I'm looking for is a pass rush, right? And this Panther team really just has not put it together yet, especially when it comes to their 4-man rush. They still have the 3rd lowest pass rush grade in the league. They have the 2nd lowest pressure rate in the league, 4th lowest pass rush win rate. Who is it going to be against this young and banged up Saints offensive line? Who's it going to be that gets a pass rush together for this team? Is it going to be Derek Brown on the inside? A'Shawn Robinson? Nick Scorton's got 9 pressures over the last 3 games. Maybe it's him. 9 pressures and 3 sacks in the last 3 games. The rookie out of Texas A&M. I think somebody's got to find a pass rush for the Panthers in this game. They got a really good opportunity to do so. And small sample, but Tyler Shuck only a 27.5 passing grade under pressure this year. Now, that is a small sample, but that was always kind of the criticism of him coming out of Louisville and playing at Texas Tech before that was under pressure. This guy doesn't make nearly as good of decisions as he does when he's clean. He doesn't have a whole lot of answers outside the pocket. So I think the Panthers getting pressure on Tyler Shuck in this game. Shuck, it was really hard to judge him last week against the Rams because he was never on the field, but I think if you can rattle him in the pocket, you're at a big advantage. The Panthers have to find a way to do that, whether it's Derek Brown and the veterans on the inside or some of those young kids off the edge.
You know, when you look at the Panthers, this is a team that, especially on the offensive side of the ball, because I'm moving to the offensive side for them now. It's been very up and down with passing, certainly with Bryce playing a little bit banged up. I mean, last week they got the victory, but Bryce was not very explosive. He struggled. I think you could tell that he's playing through some pain there. So I don't really know what to expect of the passing game because I don't know how much better Bryce is going to look. He clearly was good enough for them to get a win last week, but he wasn't really the reason why they won. It's the run game. right? I mean, specifically Rico Dowdle. Well, the offensive line, I got to give them their kudos too. They got guys banged up. They got guys in and out of the lineup. They just continue to play very, very well as a unit, no matter who is in there along the offensive line. But Rico Dowdle, since week 5, Dalton, most carries in the NFL, most rushing yards in the NFL, most missed tackles forced in the NFL, most yards after contact, and he is second in total first downs gained on the ground behind only Jonathan Taylor. Rico Dowdle's been fantastic, and I think there's reason to believe that he could also have a good game this game. Saints, since week 5, though, probably a better run defense team than maybe you would expect. They're 12th in EPA per rush allowed, and they're 10th in overall team run defense grade while facing the most run defense snaps of any team during that time. All of that to say, I kind of get the vibe that it's going to be a big Chuba Hubbard day. I really do. There was talk of him being on the trade block. Is he going to Kansas City? Is he going to go to New England? Like, where could Chuba Hubbard be on the move? You don't need him. You can get out of that contract. You got Rico Dowdle. You're totally fine. You could trade him. And they don't. And I think that they're going to make a statement. Like, I don't think, for as much as head coaches and teams go, we don't listen to that crap from outside of the building, they hear it. It would almost be impossible to not. And so I got a feeling that there's a little bit something extra in Chuba Hubbard this week. I think that there's a little bit something extra in the game plan, and I think there's a little bit more of a motivation from Dave Canales, from Bryce Young, from the offensive line, from everybody to say, hey, you're our guy. And Chuba Hubbard has not had more than, I think it's 73 yards was the most that he has had in a single game this season. He's only rushed for more than 50 yards twice all year. 17 yards last week and 34 yards the previous week. 31 if you want to go back to the last 3 games they played. So it's been a quiet season for him, but now he's back from that injury. And I really do think that they are going to make it a statement for him to get involved, and we're going to see the best Chuba Hubbard game that we have seen yet this year from him. I think it's close. It's a divisional game. It typically is. 23-20 is what I'm going with here as the final score here, but I think the Panthers win this one.
I have Carolina as well. I think this Saints team, they just don't travel on the road very well, and I do think when you have some of those, the X factors I keep talking about for the Panthers any given week are their run defense, and then the play of Bryce Young, obviously. Wasn't great last week against the Packers, got away with it, made throws when he needed to, and they wound up winning a game, a big road game against a very good team. I think the Panthers get out of here 6-4 as well, and what a story we would have if they're 6-4 going down into the stretch here. Panthers 24, Saints 17.
Whew. 6-4. I mean, they'd be on Tampa's heels at that point, right? Because if Tampa loses against the Patriots, they'd be 6-3. So they'd be right there, match with them in a win total. And if that's the case, man, the last 3 games of the season for the Carolina Panthers, Tampa Bay, Seattle, Tampa Bay. So holding their destiny right in the palm of their hand. If they can get a win against the Saints, they got to be feeling pretty good about themselves, especially with a team that has a later bye week. I think their bye week is, what would that be, week 14? Because they have a bye week, and then it's against New Orleans, and then it's Tampa, Seattle, Tampa. So that would be, week 14 bye week there. So they might have an ability to slingshot this schedule a pretty advantageous way if they can get a nice win here. This episode is sponsored by our friends over at BetterHelp. As the days get a little shorter, a little colder, it can sometimes take a toll on how we feel. This time of year can be tough for a lot of people. It's a great reminder to reach out and check in with the people that you care about. Maybe that means, hey, you're calling your grandma. You're writing a letter to a friend. Maybe you're finally grabbing lunch with somebody that you haven't seen in a while. When we're healthier, we stay connected. We get that community and support. And just like reaching out to a friend, starting therapy, it could take a little bit of courage, but once you do, you might find yourself wondering, why didn't I do this sooner? BetterHelp makes it easy to start therapy. You'll be matched with a licensed therapist on your needs and preferences, so you guys can focus on the growth and the goals ahead. Got over 12 years of experience doing this, 30,000 therapists, over 5 million people helped out worldwide. Average live section rating of 4.9 out of 5. And if you're not happy with your match for a therapist, you can switch therapists at any time with no hassle. This month, don't wait to reach out, whether that's checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself. BetterHelp makes it easier to take that first step. Our listeners get 10% off their first month over at BetterHelp.com/PFF. It's BetterHelp, HELP.com/PFF. The Buffalo Bills are taking on the Miami Dolphins, who didn't fire sale the team. They just don't have Jalen Phillips anymore. This one's in Miami. You want to talk about the Bills or the Dolphins here to kick this off?
I'm going to go with the Bills offense here, and I've got a film breakdown on this coming out tomorrow with just how versatile they are with their personnel groupings. I was talking about it on the review show on Sunday, Trevor, about how they just manipulate defenses into what personnel they want them in, right? And that's because the Bills are so effective in any personnel grouping they can throw out there on the field. Let's put it like this, okay? When they have one tight end on the field, doesn't matter which one, if it's Dalton Kincaid or Dawson Knox or Jackson Hawes, they have the 8th highest offensive grade in the league with one tight end on the field. With 2 tight ends out there, let's say they're in 12 or 22 personnel, they're the 3rd highest graded offense in the league. And with 3 tight ends on the field, admittedly, not too many teams even have 3 tight ends capable of being on the field for them, but they're the highest graded offense in the league when they have all 3 tight ends on the field. They're one of just 2 teams ranked in the top 10 of all 3 of those categories. The Indianapolis Colts, what's been the best offense in football this year, are the only other ones. So, look, you don't have to call the Bills offense the best in football, but I do think it's the most diverse, right? When you look at just all the receivers they have and what they can do both as receivers and blockers, the 3 tight ends are a core piece of this offense. They can run it or throw it out of any package they want to. And then you have Josh Allen and Joe Brady just masterminding the whole thing. I think Joe Brady in this last game against Kansas City, that was the best game he's called all year. He's done an unbelievable job of calling plays all year in any personnel package and being creative about it. And that's why he's going to be a head coaching candidate this offseason.
For Miami's side of things, obviously you still have Tua, you still have Jalen Waddle, you didn't trade any of those guys. But I think it's becoming clear with Miami that post Tyreek Hill, since Tyreek Hill's injury, the only thing that really matters with this team is stopping the run game. Because if you could stop the run game, Tua sort of is what he is, right? He's going to be somebody who the ball's going to come out of his hands very, very quickly. He's going to have a lot of in-rhythm throws. They're going to give speedsters like Malik Washington or Jalen Waddle the opportunity to get a lot of yards after catch. Like, that stuff exists in this offense. But you also know that due to the nature of how heavily emphasized Tua's decisions are based on pre-snap reads, he's going to have some turnover-worthy plays. He's going to put the ball in harm's way. And if you give him a look that he wasn't expecting pre-snap, you're probably going to be able to get some takeaways on him. So that's kind of just the book on what this Dolphins offense is when it comes to the passing attack. But when they win, when they put themselves in an opportunity to get wins this season, it's been because they've been able to run the ball really well. And that Buffalo game specifically, they ran the ball really well. They didn't end up winning that game, but they had 130 rushing yards against the Bills in week 3 when they faced off against them earlier this season. And both Ollie Gordon and Devon Achane had yards per carry averages above 4.2. So that's a really healthy rushing attack. The Bills were not able to stop it. And that's, while Miami's offensive line was still struggling, like we have seen them struggle for, unfortunately, most of the first half of this season. So to me, it's a little bit of a simplistic look at this game, but I kind of feel as though the passing attack just is what it is at this point for Miami. It's not really going to change. And the success that they have on the offensive side of the ball is simply dictated towards, do they have enough explosiveness or big plays or just a healthy yards per carry average to continue to move the ball and move the chains on third downs, get into the end zone. So to me, the rushing attack is the most important in highlighting how they played. And they played well against the Buffalo Bills in that area when they played against them in week 3. All that to say, hard for me to think this game's going to be close, especially with the Bills defense and the secondary at the safety level playing better than they had been at the start of the season. I think how safeties play against Tua means a lot towards how many turnover-worthy plays we actually get from him in these games. Bills are kind of rolling right now. I'm going to go 33-14. The Buffalo Bills win this one.
I agree. I have it 30-17 Buffalo. I think the offense really did a nice job of getting rolling again with all the personnel groupings in this last game against the Chiefs. And the Dolphins, you just look at them in any given week, but especially in this one, they don't have many advantages. You mentioned it. If they can run the ball, especially with Ed Oliver out for the Buffalo Bills, I think you're talking about a game that could be close like it was last time in Buffalo on a Thursday night. But I like the Bills here in this game. I really like the confidence they should have coming out of that Chiefs win.
Yeah, it looks like basically everybody in the chat also agrees with this. Not a lot of people have a lot of faith in what the Dolphins are able to do this season. But divisional game here. And if you like the Bills, man, 9.5-point favorites. If you like that many points in a divisional game, maybe this game's for you, and maybe you're taking a sneaky backdoor cover there from the Miami Dolphins. Okay, let's talk about the Browns and the Jets. And when I say let's talk about it, I mean let's preview a little bit of what we have here. But these are two teams, let's be honest, they probably have their sights set a little bit further than this week. They've probably got their sights set a little bit towards the offseason and the years to come. At least we do for them. So we're going to preview this game here, but we're also going to preview what the NFL draft could potentially look like for these two teams. But let's start with the game. Tell me, what are you focused on here with the New York Jets? What do they got to do to get a big win? Because their general manager, Darren Muji, he said, hey, our focus is winning football games this year. And I totally believe him. 100% believe him. Would never doubt him for a second. I mean, it's not like he traded two of his most talented players the last couple of days. Definitely didn't do that. No, but look, okay, Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams, those guys are gone. They're still going to go out there and try to win this football game. So how do they do that this week, Dalton?
I'm going to focus on the Quinnen Williams side of that because obviously if you trade away a guy like that, despite some other guys playing well up front, Jawan Briggs and Jermaine Johnson off the edge too, I think you look at the impact it has on this run defense in this matchup. Look, the Browns, is no secret about it. They can't throw the football. They can't throw. They can't block. They can't catch. Okay, well, they can run the football with Quinshon Judkins. That's what they're going to want to do in this game and every week. With Quinnen Williams on the field this year, the Jets have a 74 run defense grade and have allowed 3.9 yards per design carry. When he's been off the field this year, that run defense grade goes all the way down to 59.9. They give up 4.4 yards per carry. Basically, it's the guys replacing Quinnen Williams in that role as the primary run defenders on the inside. Jawan Briggs, Harrison Phillips. Maybe we see Leonard Taylor a bit more in this game. Can those guys between the tackles hold up without big number 95 in there anymore? If the Browns can run the football and avoid Dylan Gabriel having to throw it into the teeth of what's left of that secondary with Brandon Stevens and Azaria Thomas and those guys on the back end, then I think you talk about the Browns having an advantage here, but that's going to be the interesting part, at least for this matchup, is how does the Jets defensive line fare in the middle without Quinnen Williams being there anymore?
For the Jets, to me on the defense side of the football, how do they cover tight ends? Because that is the offense right now for the Cleveland Browns. It's Dave Njoku, who did not get traded. It's Harold Fannin Jr. You get a little bit of sprinkle in action here with the wide receivers, but one of the lowest, if not the lowest graded wide receiver room that we have in the NFL this season. Certainly they've got to be able to stop the run as well. When we ever have a good Quinshon Judkins day, they have the ability to put up some points, but it's just how the Jets cover their tight ends, really. And if you're able to do that and neutralize that, I don't know if Dylan Gabriel really has the faith in his receivers to be able to hold on to the ball, get the explosive plays in the passing game that you want. So certainly the run game, very important with Quinshon Judkins here, but really it just comes down to, can the Jets defend the Browns tight ends? And 51.4 overall coverage grade as a team against tight ends this season are the New York Jets. I have my score here, but I just realized we picked the same team. So because this game deserves it, we need to be on opposite sides of the coin here. So are you sticking with your Browns prediction?
I'm sticking with Cleveland because you know what I actually want the result to be. So yeah. Yep, I'm manifesting. I'm manifesting the result I want here. Is what's going on. Yes,
okay.
We had
What's the final score that you have?
We had the idea. This might be a thing on Sunday where, because producer Tyler back here is a Browns fan, where maybe he brings me a Brown shirt to wear and I bring him a Jets shirt to wear, and we just see. And of course, if we do that, the game will end up in a tie. But no, I think I have the Browns. That's exactly the result that would come out of this week for the Jets. I should call out a tie right now is what I should do, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to get pretty close. So give me the Browns 13-12. That's where I'm going with it.
I'm gonna be even worse. I'm gonna be even worse, but I'm gonna flip the result. Jets 9, Browns 7.
Killing me, Trev.
Nobody's getting double digits in this game. But you know what? A win is a win is a win. Let's fire up the PFF mock draft simulator because we haven't done that yet this year. And there's just a little, dipping your toe in the water to remind you guys that this thing is available for you whenever you want. Let's do a little 2-round mock draft here that we're going to do really quickly for each of these teams. Because like we said, we're previewing the game that we've got this week. But really, we're kind of previewing what these teams could be, especially the Jets now that they got some extra draft picks. We already know the Browns got some extra draft picks because of the trade with the Jags. So I'll have you run through this mock draft simulator first for the New York Jets. I'm going to give you the power here.
Oh, okay. All right. So what am I picking? 3rd overall for the New York Jets. All right. So
I think this is the Jets, right? Are the Jets the team? Yeah. Okay. The Jets are the team that we've got.
We're doing the
Jets.
Just
wanted to make sure.
Okay. All right. Let's let it rip. Let's get to that 3rd overall pick and see what's available here. Let's see.
By the way, if you guys you can fire it up and you can go to number 3 and we can see who's available here, and Dalton can make some decisions here. But if you guys want to be able to run as many mock drafts as you want, Use the fully unlocked mock draft simulator. Rounds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You got to get a PFF Plus subscription to be able to do it. PFF NFL Show 25. That is the best way to do that. So you guys can run as many mock drafts as you possibly want for however many teams that you want to choose. Dalton, how are we feeling here? We got Fernando Mendoza off the board and Caleb Downs off the board. What are you going with this first pick since they've got 2 first-round picks?
All right, this is fun. I got 2 first-round picks, and don't forget, Trev, also I have 2 second-round picks, too. So this is going to be fun. 4 picks in 2 rounds for the Jets, and you already know I can't wait for 2027 and those 3 first. But let's focus on right now. So, listen, and Mendoza in this scenario is off the board, went first overall to the Saints there. That's interesting. I'm actually in the boat where I think I would just build the rest of this team first, and I would wait for somebody in 2027 and build this roster first.
I kind of agree.
I'm in on that, and you know me. I don't know if you've watched him yet. I love Julian Sand from Ohio State. I'm about to spend the next year and a half manifesting Julian Sand to the Saints. Although I would be cool with Arch Manning. I think he's going to stay for another year. I'm going to go with the top player on the board to start out with right there in Ruben Bain Jr. from Miami. I think when you look at, yes, we have Will McDonald, yes, we have Jermaine Johnson, but Johnson's going into the final year of his contract next year. And I think Bain, look, if Aaron Glenn is going to go in there and draft in the same way, draft those big tough guys like Dan Campbell did in Detroit, isn't Ruben Bain perfect for that, right? He's an elite run defender. He's gotten so much better as a pass rusher this year. He's strong as an ox. You've got positional versatility with him inside or outside. Let's make Ruben Bain the new anchor of this defensive line.
All right, so Ruben Bain. I was wondering if you were going to go with Bain because of having Jermaine Johnson there, and I wondered if you thought that he was going to be in the plans in the future. But, okay, so you got Ruben Bain in hand. Now we have the Indianapolis Colts pick here. Now, remember, you pick in 3 selections after this anyways in the second round, and then you also have the Dallas Cowboys pick in the second round. So, go ahead. Who are you going with here? Do you like the board? Do you not like the board? What are we doing here?
I do like the board here. If we want to just scroll down, I just want to see a couple other guys that are in this range. Let's see, because I got some guys in mind here. Ooh, see, we could go corner. I know we have Azaria Thomas. We have Brandon Stevens on another year or 2. I could go receiver, maybe. Any receivers you like in this range, Trev? I know we got A.D. Mitchell just now, but if there's anybody, Chris, I know that's producer Quinn circling Chris Bell with a.
Oh yeah, Quinn's got to be running this as a Louisville guy. Obviously, like the rankings are mine, so I like. Well, they're not quite mine. They're actually consensus, so they're not quite mine, but. I think Ian Strong's a stud. He's a contested catch guy, but I think he's a stud. I think Elijah Surratt is great, but you can get these dudes in the second round. I don't think you got to reach it. Maybe Chris Bell is somebody that you would have to pick at the back end of the first round because I think his stock's going to soar because of the athleticism. But yeah, I'd probably pick either Ian Strong, Elijah Surratt, or Chris Bell if you were going wide receiver. But I also think you can wait on one of those.
Man, and we do have to replace Quinnen, too. You know what? Oh, 1 of 2 guys. I'm going to go with the higher guy on the board. I do like Caden McDonald, what he's doing for Ohio State a lot, but I'm going to go with the higher guy on the board. I'm going to go with the top guy there, Kristen Miller, because you know what? I think that's a natural replacement in run defense for what you're looking for in the trenches in replacing Quinnen Williams there. Kristen Miller, look, he's not going to give you a ton of pass rush, right? He's kind of a true nose guard in there, but tell you what, he can have that impact in run defense where he's just clogging up those A-gaps the entire game. Let's go with that, and then 3 picks later here, I got to pick something else.
All right, let's pick it. And then what are you going with the receiver here? You taking one of these receivers?
I'm leaning. A.J. Harris might not be a bad call either, though.
You do need corner
A.J. Harris, and honestly, I think one of these 2 picks is going to be a linebacker. And do I feel good about Sonny Styles, Deontay Lawson I saw on the board there? And I'll tell you, I think a guy that would fit in here, I think C.J. Allen from Georgia would fit in here too. You want to talk? If I'm just going, you know what, screw it. Let's stack up this front 7 and fix this run defense. I might not be against that, honestly. I think that might be a decent idea too. I think somebody even I could see scenarios where a C.J. Allen goes in this range. Anthony Hill's also a great athletic player too. You got a pretty good linebacker class here, I think, especially in this round group.
Definitely. Linebacker, I think, is awesome this year. Really good year to get a linebacker. Okay, let's go C.J. Allen here in the second round, and then pick number 46. You going with a receiver at 46? Probably one of those guys that are left.
Yeah, give me. Bell's got talent, but I love Elijah Surratt. Is he still on the board?
I don't think so, because he would have been there.
Did he get taken?
Oh, I think Elijah
Surratt got taken. That hurts. That hurts.
You played with fire. You could add CJ Allen afterwards.
Here's the other question. I know we took one in the second round last year. Are there any tight ends you might take in this range? Get the 12 personnel going in Tanner's offense? I could probably wait.
You'd probably wait to the third round, but I do really like the tight end class in the third and fourth round. I think there's a lot of guys that are going to play in the league, just probably as like third or fourth round.
All right, we're trying to find weapons. We'll get Garrett Wilson in the slot a little bit more. Give me Chris Bell from Louisville. Size and speed, and just you have those two things. That's what everyone looks for in receivers. I think that's a guy that's going to tear up the combine. He's really tools. He's been really good for Louisville this year. Bell and maybe A.D. Mitchell on the outside with Garrett Wilson flying all over the formation. We'll do it right there.
Obviously, the MDS thinks that you did a pretty good job here with a B+. The only thing that it didn't like is CJ Allen. He's 56 on the board, and you took a 35, so it's just a little bit of a reach versus where he is on the board. But obviously, what you're saying of fixing the run defense, and I think there's a very good reason to believe that CJ Allen could be rising up the boards and could end up getting picked closer to where you picked him here. So, Reuben Bain, Christian Miller, CJ Allen, Chris Bell, those are some damn good football players there. No quarterback, but man, you're helping out the rest of the roster. All right, let's reset it. Let's go to the Cleveland Browns real quick. See what we got here. All right, so Cleveland's up at number 6. Yes, Cleveland's up at number 6. All right, fire away. Let's do it.
All right, so you're answering the quarterback question here. Are you going quarterback, or could you wait till round 2 on a quarterback and see what's available there? That could be a question.
I wouldn't want to do that. If I'm taking a quarterback at all, I'm going to take one here, and I'm going to get my pick. Mendoza or Ty Simpson. To be honest with you, I really do think that one of these guys could be available here. I don't think the league's going to look at this quarterback class, and even for as desperate as some of these quarterback teams are, I don't think it's like, yeah, we got to take one no matter what. I just don't know if these guys are going to have those kinds of grades for teams. So I'm going to go with Ty Simpson because I like him the most. And I just, if the Browns are able to get him at the top of the first round, I think that raises the ceiling of your offense much, much, much higher. So let's go with Ty Simpson here. I'm going to address the quarterback spot, and then I'm going to see how we can really address probably offensive. Okay, here we go. So they've got pick 19 a little bit later in the first round. I think I'm going to take Maui Noah.
Yeah,
the offensive tackle from Miami.
I could see it. I think if he was,
they have to draft an offensive lineman.
They do. If he was on the board, I would say Spencer Fano is actually the best fit for Stefanski. So it's a matter of if you want Noah or if you want Caden Proctor and the athleticism on the left side there to go along with Simpson. He's obviously familiar. So, yeah, I mean, take your pick between the two. I think Fano would be the best fit of all of them, but they need O-line and wide receiver in the worst way in this draft.
Yeah, I'm going to take Maui Noah here just because I do think I've got more faith in him at offensive tackle right now. And then in the second round, I'm going to go with some sort of a wide receiver. Can we just go over to wide receiver? It's got to be. They got to get somebody who's better here. I'm going to...
Oh, man, you have the shot at Surratt that I didn't.
I was going to say I think most people would say that it's either Surratt or Jeremy Bernard from Alabama. I like Surratt more still, but man, Jeremy Bernard is growing on me. I don't know if he does anything exponentially well from an athletic standpoint, but he's a damn good football player. He really is. All that to say, I'm going to go Elijah Surratt. He's my guy. I've been a big fan of his. He's been hovering around the top 50 since this summer. Oh, man, I had the opportunity to reunite him and his quarterback, but no, didn't go with it. Ty Simpson, Francis Mauigoa, Elijah Surratt. There we go. That is the Cleveland Browns mock draft that we had there. So little mock draft fun. Like I said, if you guys have a PFF Plus subscription, you can go over to the mock draft simulator. You can run as many mock drafts as you want, not just now, but all draft season long. All right, let's get back to the game previews that we got here. What's the next game we got on the docket? It is
Cardinals Seahawks.
The Cardinals and the Seahawks.
All right.
Yes, divisional matchup here. Cardinals coming off of a big win against the Dallas Cowboys. Do you want to start talking about the Cardinals, or do you want to talk about the Seahawks here?
We're going to go with this something of a, I guess, call it quarterback controversy, or what apparently you're calling this, you and a lot of people are calling the soft benching, which isn't actually a real thing, but that's...
I think it is.
That's what they're calling it,
I think
apparently.
It is.
But, I mean, look, there's been a big difference. There's been a stark difference in this Cardinals offense with Jacoby Jacoby Brissett playing as opposed to Kyler Murray. And the big thing to me is that Brissett is actually standing in the pocket and throwing the football downfield. With Kyler Murray on the field this year, this looked like one of those air raid Mike Leach kind of offenses where you throw the ball 5 yards every single play. You see the second lowest average depth of target Kyler Murray has this season in the NFL, and just a 74.3 passing grade on 10-plus yard throws, 28th in the league. Jacoby Brissett is firing it downfield. Look, this team can't run the football very much right now. They've got practice squad running backs out there. The O-line hasn't been great. They've got to find a way to create explosive plays, and to his credit, Brissett is doing that. The 7th highest average depth of target and a much higher passing grade on those 10-plus yard throws. Use Marvin Harrison downfield. Use Michael Wilson downfield. Use Trey McBride downfield. That's what's working for this Cardinals offense right now. So I give Brissett a lot of credit for coming out and firing, and for the foreseeable future, he's got the job, whether it's this soft benching you're talking about or if Kyler Murray's actually hurt, this foot injury's not recovering as he thought. But either way, when Kyler Murray was out there, the offense was way too conservative in the passing game. Just everything was dinking and dunking 5 and 6 yards at a time. I like that Brissett is attacking vertically. It's working for this team, and it's certainly a big reason they just won Monday night against Dallas.
I just love how much the term soft benching bothers you. That's really what it is about here. The foot injury could very well be the reason why he is still out, but it also certainly helps that Jacoby Brissett is operating the offense pretty well. So you got to give him his credit there. And the team's rolling. Wins are hard to come by for the Cardinals right now. And finishing that game against Dallas, you had to feel good about that. On the Seahawks side of things, there's so much that we could talk about with the Seattle Seahawks and how well they've played. We've talked about how Sam Darnold is an MVP candidate, how Clint Kubiak should be up for head coaching position or coordinator of the year, whatever you want to say here. The fact of the matter is, if you can't slow down Jackson Smith and Jigba at all, I don't think you have a chance against this team. They're just too good. So the matchup that I'm looking for here is Will Johnson versus Jackson Smith and Jigba. So Jackson Smith and Jigba, more than 76 yards in every single game he has played this season, over 100 yards in all but 2, and he has a 92.9 receiving grade. On Will Johnson's side of things, this past week, going up against the Dallas Cowboys wide receivers, he had a 77.0 coverage grade, allowing only 43 receiving yards on 4 catches. He has been playing better. He looks like that CB1 caliber player that we saw from him in Michigan. And I think that he's going to be up to the challenge. I don't know if he's going to be able to stop Jackson Smith and Jigba because nobody has at this point in the season. But the fact of the matter is, if you don't slow him down, the Seahawks are going to outscore you. That's it. And somebody has to slow him down a little bit for that to even be remotely the case. So I think this game's closer than what I thought it would have been maybe a week ago. Seahawks 28, Cardinals 23. What do you got?
All right. I'm doing something fun here. I've also got Seattle. I have to check my exact score because I was doing something else. What do I have the Seahawks? 27-21. I think Sam Darnold stays hot. 27-21. I was looking at, just for the storyline of it, Trev.
Yes.
Rashid Shaheed, anytime touchdown. How do we feel about it?
Rashid Shaheed?
Yeah.
Wait, he's not playing in this game.
Is he not? What do you mean? He's a Seattle Seahawks.
Oh, Rashid Shaheed. I'm thinking Rashid Rice. When you said that, I immediately thought of Rashid Rice because I've talked about him as an anytime touchdown monster. Boy, that would be fun, wouldn't it?
I like Rashid Shaheed plus 260 anytime touchdown. We in on that?
Yeah,
First game, familiar with the system, Clint Kubiak?
Hell yeah. Yes. All right, he's getting hit the ground running.
Good. I'm putting $10 on it right now. Done. Done deal.
We're
going just for the story. Like, they make the trade. Sam Darnold's the best deep passer in the league right now. Chucking the ball downfield. Rashid Shaheed's the deep threat. He knows Clint Kubiak well. There it is. $10 on it. Done deal.
Rams at the 49ers. You talking about the Rams or the Niners here? What are you doing?
We are going to go with a trench war that we are going to see between this 49ers offensive line and this Rams defensive line. You got a Niners O-line that is 4th in the league in PFF grade and 3rd in run blocking grade. But while they're coming off their best game of the year against the Giants, their lowest grade of the season came against this Rams defensive line in that Thursday night game that the Niners did win in Week 5, but that was mostly because Mac Jones was getting rid of the football in a very timely manner and avoiding that pass rush. If your line can't protect you, protect yourself, Trevor. Against this Rams D-line, Jared Verse, Poona Ford, Kobe Turner, all these guys, 2nd highest graded D-line in the league, 7th in run defense grade, and their 2nd highest grade of the season came in that Week 5 game against San Francisco. The Niners have been running the football even better lately with George Kittle coming back, but they've got a big task going against this Rams D-line that's so talented inside and outside. Plus, you got linebackers and safeties and everybody else in the back seven playing well. I think that's really going to be the key to this game. McCaffrey really did not get going at all on the ground in the first matchup between these two teams, and the Niners found a way to win anyway. They're going to need him this time around, regardless of who the quarterback is, whether it's Brock Purdy or Mac Jones this week. They're going to have to find a way to run the football and still run the offense through McCaffrey. It should look better with Kittle back in the fold and Luke Farrell blocking well at tight end as well, but the Niners offensive line has got to step up in a big matchup.
This is a great game, obviously, when these teams matched up just a couple of weeks ago. And when they did, I didn't realize this. Rams had 456 yards of offense, and they lost that game. And the reason why they lost, the two fumbles. The fumbles that was the one fumble that was right outside of the goal line, and then the other one that was in San Francisco's field of play. And so you're on the opposite side of the 50-yard line basically the entire game. They were moving the ball at will. That's so many yards to have in a single game. And so it's hard for me to think that the Rams aren't going to continue to play well against this team. I think the 49ers got the better of them in overtime last time that they matched up, but I'm going to take the Rams here, 31-20. I just think that it's really hard to bet against a team that is rolling the way that they are. On the offensive side of the ball, how they're running the football, defensively up front, Byron Young is playing well this season to complement what the attention that Jared Verse is getting on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage. They had some secondary deficiencies. They go and make a trade for it. They go and I think make a couple of acquisitions if you just go back from a calendar year. But I think that this team's made of the right stuff, and I think the Rams are absolutely one of the best teams in the NFL, and I think they get it done this time around against the Niners. So 31-20 is my final score here. What do you got?
It's never easy. It is certainly never easy between these two teams, and Kyle Shanahan against Sean McVay, and all just a great play that we get from so many players on these two teams. I'm with you. I think the Rams get the revenge, but it's not going to be an easy one. 27-24. I think Stafford, as long as Puka Nacua is healthy, it feels like we say that a lot now, but as long as he's healthy from the chest injury suffered last week, he should have a good day. And I just think this lack of Niners pass rush now, it's really hurting them. They didn't trade for a pass rusher. They tried to get Jermaine Johnson off the Jets, just couldn't get the asking price going there. I think that's going to hurt. And when Matthew Stafford's in a clean pocket right now, there's nobody better. He's an MVP candidate. I think the Rams, they squeak it out on the road here.
Man, speaking of nobody better, there's nobody better at getting you some high-quality steaks like Omaha Steaks. Weather's changing. We're firing up the grill. Dalton, I'm doing that tonight. I'm firing up the grill. I'm throwing on an Omaha steak tonight. Why? Because you've said it before. Wednesday, kind of like our weekend. We're watching college games. We're taking notes. We're prepping for the show. You got the couple of shows you're doing. I got these shows in NFLSC, all that. Wednesday night, it's almost like our Friday. And I celebrate Friday by putting a good cut of meat on the grill. I don't know about you. Pretty sure everybody out there has something very similar. And if that is part of your routine, well, first of all, if it's not, it should be. But if it is part of your routine, you're not doing Omaha Steaks, you're not doing it right. From handcrafted steaks to delicious fall favorites, Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience. Enjoy USDA-certified tender steaks, juicy burgers, cozy and convenient comfort meals, plus all the tailgating favorites like chicken wings, smash burgers, Big Deli-style franks, all that good stuff. Now, during their Red Hot Sales event, you can get 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com, plus get an extra $35 off with the promo code PFF at checkout. Dalton, heard you talking the show. You're like, nah, I'm doing it. Yeah, I'm loading up the cart and I'm absolutely making it happen. I know you're a filet guy. They got fillets. They got all different sorts of cuts of meat. Everybody out there, whatever you're looking for, they've absolutely got it. Convenience of having high quality Omaha Steaks on hand is fantastic. I'm normally a ribeye guy. I love a good ribeye, and Omaha Steaks, they've got some of my favorites. Heartland quality food that's delivered right to your door, folks. So check them out. Fire up the grill this fall with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their Red Hot Sales event. And for an extra $35 off, use that promo code PFF at checkout. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $35 off with the promo code PFF when you're at checkout. See the site for all of those details. We got to get that off the screen. We got to get. I'm getting too hungry. We can't do it. Can't do it. We got to power through this show. We got to get to the very end, and I'm not going to be able to focus now. In the best way. Let's talk about the Lions and the Commanders. You want to talk about the Commanders? You want to talk about the Detroit Lions? Both these teams coming off losses, looking to bounce back. Where we're starting with this one, Dalton.
I'm going to talk about just one particular guy on this Lions defense, and it's not
Okay.
Aiden Hutchinson, who we've talked about plenty. It's not Al-Qadim Muhammad. It's not the great safety pair that we know we have back there with Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph. I got to tell you something. I'm just watching some Lions tape last night and this morning going, you know what? Trev, Jack Campbell absolutely rules. You want just a solid middle linebacker. Remember a couple of years ago when, man, they were coming off the heels of taking a running back 12th overall, and of course PFF hates running backs, and we're already killing that move. And then 6 picks later, they take a linebacker from Iowa in the first round, and everybody in the football world goes, what in the world are you doing right now, taking these considered non-premium positions, right? What are the Lions doing? What is Dan Campbell? Was he a lunatic? And the answer might be yes, but also, boy, this Jack Campbell pick is working a couple of years later, because you look at his third year in the NFL with Fred Warner out for the season. I think you could argue Campbell is the best linebacker in football right now. Third in PFF grade, first in run defense grade. Trevor, his run defense tape, if you've gone through it at all this year, it's an absolute coach's clinic. The way that he reads offensive lines and sees and lets his eyes take his feet to where he needs to be to the football is unbelievable. Top 15 in coverage, 11 pressures and 4 sacks this year as a blitzer so far. This dude is everywhere. You talk about last year he broke out into a solid starter. He's putting his case in right now for being the best linebacker playing in football. I think he's just been all over the place, and you look at the way especially that he cleans up the run game, and that's going to be key in this game against Washington. We know they have success when they can run the football. It's going to be Marcus Mariota. They're still going to want to emphasize the run game in this game plan with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, with Chris Rodriguez, with whoever else. Jack Campbell is the guy shutting all that down right now, and he's been really good in the passing game as well. I think he just needs recognition as really, I think, turning into a superstar at this position.
I love it. I love that recognition there. I love the deep dive into Jack Campbell tape because it matters a lot. And he's one of those football players that very much that they prioritized when they were going through that draft. And he has manifested about as well as they could have asked for him too. The Lions offensive line, I'm a little bit worried about this unit. I know on the defense side of the ball, you talked about not being worried at the second level with Jack Campbell, all that. I'm a little worried about what the Lions have on their offensive line because their success over the last couple of years has been just ass kickers up front. They've really been great on the offensive line. Penei Sewell was the only offensive lineman that they had last week who graded above a 65 for an overall blocking grade. Now, this week, they might not have Sewell. They might not have Taylor Decker. They know they're not going to have Christian Mahogany. There's just a lot of unknown on that offensive line. And a big reason why the Vikings were able to get the win over Detroit, and something that we sort of pointed out afterwards, was the lack of explosiveness that they've had from the run game. And when this team has been operating at its best over the last couple of years, it's because they've been explosive out of the backfield with their backs. And not only were they not really able to do that last week against Minnesota, now it seems like they're going to be very short-handed along the offensive line. So that's a tough ask. Now, they're playing a Commanders team that the run defense grade's barely above a 60, so it's not like this is one of the best, run defense units in the NFL. They still could get it going, and ultimately, I do still have the Lions winning this game. I just think they're the better team, especially with Jaden Daniels not out there to be dynamic for the Commanders at the quarterback position. All due respect to Marcus Mariota, who has played well as a QB2 there for them. I just don't think the Commanders can stack up against Detroit right now, but I think it's got a chance to be closer than people believe, especially Vegas. That line, 8.5 right now. I got Lions 27, Commanders 22. I think that this one's going to be within striking distance at the end because I'm not convinced that the Lions are going to be able to pull away the way that they want to with the offensive line as banged up as it is. So I think game's going to be a little bit closer, but I do still have the Lions winning.
I'm going to go with the Lions a little bit bigger than that, 34-20. I think the big advantage they have, and look, if they struggle a bit to run the football with their offensive line banged up, that is one thing. But the biggest advantage they have is their set of weapons. When you have St. Brown and Jamison Williams and Sam Laporta against this Washington secondary that's been one of the 2 or 3 worst in the league, I think that's just too big an advantage. As long as Jared Goff is clean enough back there in the pocket, and we've seen games before this year like the Cleveland game where it's just, hey, get rid of the football and let these guys do the work on the outside. I think you have a scenario here where the Lions are just going to score a lot of points. It's going to be too much for Washington. 34-20 Detroit.
The Steelers are traveling to Los Angeles to take on the Chargers for Sunday Night Football this upcoming week. You want to talk about the Chargers? You want to talk about the Steelers for this one?
I'm going to talk about Justin Herbert because you know what? With this Chargers offense, there's not much else to talk about, and I think the job that he's done with this offensive line injuries, Joe Alt now out for the season, Rashawn Slater out for the season, Mekhi Becton banged up. They're trading for Trevor Penning, and to be honest, I think that's kind of interesting because I wonder if there's a chance that he could end up playing tackle for this team with basically no one left at tackle. I think you look at what Herbert's done under pressure. He's got the 4th best passing grade in the NFL under pressure right now. 7 touchdowns is the most in the league. 0.6% turnover-worthy play rate, protecting the football. He's been pressured 41% of the time, 7th most among qualified quarterbacks. And the interesting part, too, is, Trev, it seems odd considering the number of mobile dual-threat quarterbacks we have in the NFL, but Justin Herbert is leading all quarterbacks in rushing yards right now. He's taken off and scrambling and just doing whatever it takes to win ball games. 305 rushing yards. He is leading all quarterbacks in rushing yards. And
do you have it up right now, the whole list?
I believe, because I know somebody's right behind him. I forget who.
Is it Drake? Is it Drake May?
Let me look. I'm going to it right now. I forget who's.
Oh, it might be Jackson Dart, right? Or no, he didn't start the year, so it's probably not him.
Here are, once this wants to load, your top 5 quarterbacks in rushing yards. Figured Mahomes is probably up there too. He's been
yeah. Mahomes is definitely going to be up there
if this ever wants to load. Come on now, thing.
Mahomes is going to be in there. I think Drake's going to be in there. I think he's going to be in that top 5.
Jackson Dart's a good call, too, because he's had several good games.
Yeah, but I just don't know if he's had enough games to be in the top 5.
I mean, credit to him, too, because, I mean, that usually in the past hasn't been a big option for him, but he's had to do what he's had to do. It's almost like what Baker Mayfield's done down there for Tampa, scrambling so much, and even what Mahomes does for the Chiefs, where it's like, listen, I just got to make a play and win a ball game any way possible. So I think when you look at that, all right, here are your top 5. Justin Herbert, 305.
Yep.
Justin Fields, 288.
Okay.
Patrick Mahomes, 285.
Okay.
Josh Allen, 280.
Oh, man. I wondered if we would get some like non-obvious names.
Drake May, 270. Well, the non-obvious name is Justin Herbert. That's really what you have leading the way there.
Well, for this year, for sure, yeah.
I mean, and he's third in explosive runs behind Mahomes and Lamar. So, I mean, you look at Justin Herbert and just what he's had to do to improvise his way, and he's going to have to do it the rest of the season. And then you talk about this week having to face T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig and Cam Hayward and Derek Harmon and Keanu Benton. I mean, it's going to be the same thing. He's either going to have to get rid of the football or make plays with his legs outside the pocket because this is just going to be life for the Chargers now without Joe Alt. I believe it's only a 43 pass blocking grade this year without Joe Alt on the field.
For me, on the Steelers side of things, look, you talk about their their defensive line. I mean, that's really the strength of this team, just the defense and how well they're able to play. On the offensive side of things, it really, to me, is just like, who is wide receiver 2 on this team? And when I really mean that, I mean just kind of like pass catcher 2, right? Like, it could just be Pat Freiermuth, and you could just say, like, okay, he's the second most reliable guy because he has the second best receiving grade behind DK Metcalf on this team. But Calvin Austin got 6 targets last week. Darnell Washington got 6 targets last week. Kenneth Gainwell got 6 targets. Johnny Smith got 5 targets. Like, it just, there hasn't really, and I guess it's beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? Do you look at the Steelers offense and do you think it's diverse, and do you think that there are a lot of players that they can lean on at any time, or do you get nervous about when your back is against the wall? Do you have anybody else that you could trust outside of DK Metcalf? I am more on the side of the latter, and I think that if the Steelers really are going to be a playoff team this season, they've got to figure that part out. They've got to have somebody that has the trust of Aaron Rodgers, and he knows that he could go to whenever you need him to. And so that's really just that's the big question with the Steelers team. I think through the next 4 to 5 games is who is that receiver 2 type of an option? Because I already know what the defense can be. When they show up, they're pretty damn good. They're one of the best in the NFL, especially up front. But if the offense can't match, or at least get close to matching, then you become very one-sided. You start to lean on Aaron Rodgers too much. You start to lean on DK Metcalf too much. You become a little bit too predictable, and obviously that's not what you want. I do have the Chargers winning this game. I think it's going to be really close. I think that line of the Steelers getting 3 is actually a really good line here. I've got the Chargers 26 and the Steelers at 24. That's right around sort of what I think the back and forth of this game is going to be. If Herbert can escape that pressure that the Steelers defensive line is going to give him, and This is going to be, to me, this is going to be a massive game towards his, like MVP and top caliber quarterback type of an argument, because with such a beat up offensive line, I think he's going to be running for his life a lot. How much is he able to do with his legs? And then how much is he able to continue to keep his eyes down the field to hit those big time throws? If he's able to win this game against the Steelers defensive line, I think we start, not that we haven't already, but really got to start giving Justin Herbert his kudos for one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL and an MVP this year.
If the Chargers win this game, there's a very good chance that my stat that tells a story on Sunday is going to be his average time to throw. That's just, it's how it was. I mean, you even think about the way that Joe Flacco tore up Pittsburgh, even though it seems they have a disadvantage on the offensive line. He got rid of the football quickly, and the Steelers' coverage unit could not respond well. The Chargers are most likely not going to be able to run the football in this game. They haven't been running the ball well. I actually am going to take the Steelers' trench advantage there to get them a narrow win. I have it 24-23 Steelers. I'm going with your classic 1-point win there. I just think Aaron Rodgers will do enough. It's a zone-heavy defense. He likes to work underneath and get rid of the football quickly anyway. Khalil Mack could make a big difference for the Chargers as well. The pass rush has looked better since he came back from injury, but I'm going to go with Pittsburgh. I think this defensive line takes this game over like they did last week.
Last game that we got here, Monday Night Football, it's the Philadelphia Eagles coming off a bye, taking on the Green Bay Packers coming off a loss to the Carolina Panthers. You talking about the Eagles or the Packers here?
I'm going to get one last trade deadline story in here, and I'm really intrigued by these two moves, especially that the Eagles made to get Jalen Phillips from the Dolphins to play off the edge, and then to get Michael Carter from the Jets. The Jets made another earlier trade with the Eagles to send them Michael Carter, and I think what you have here is a scenario. I'm going to start with that because schematically that might be the most interesting trade out of anything. If they can get Carter back to his form from a couple years ago, he wasn't really a good fit in Aaron Glenn's system. He's more of a zone coverage type of nickel. If they can get him back in a starting nickel kind of role for this team, I have to wonder if we're going to see Cooper DeJean. In that case, actually, it would be Cooper DeJean moving to the outside because we've noted the Eagles' cornerback issues across from Quinyon Mitchell with Adoree Jackson and Kelly Ringo and guys really struggling on the outside there. I don't know about you. Actually, you had him as a top 10 player. I'd be perfectly fine with DeJean playing on the outside. I think he's perfectly capable of doing it. I think he would be just fine in this system, especially if they can get Carter to play reasonably well in the slot, right? And then as far as Jalen Phillips goes, I think he adds a really good level of pass rush as long as he's healthy that can really help this team. It's a thin edge defender unit. Josh Uche's been good in situational roles, but since Nolan Smith got hurt, they really haven't gotten enough out of this edge unit. You look at that pass rush win rate, that's the 12th best among qualified edge defenders this year, and they would both be first among all Eagles defensive linemen this year. If Jalen Phillips is healthy, that really adds a big name to this pass rush, and then later you get Nolan Smith back healthy down the stretch, and you're really looking good on this defensive line. And then I think, again, I'm very curious to see how quickly Carter can come along in this system. If he can be a starting nickel, and then if DeJean can play outside opposite of Quinyon Mitchell, and that secondary is fixed as well.
Yeah, I think the question with Jalen Phillips has never been ability. It's just been availability, right? And then when you talk about him getting traded at the deadline, it has nothing to do with who he is as a player when he's out there. He's very impactful. He's very talented. And so for the Eagles, making their bet, hoping that he's going to be fully healthy for them the rest of the year. Yeah, I think that he is now going to be their best pass rusher from their edge group, especially while it's been a little bit banged up this year. So excited to see how that unfolds. And you know how I feel about Cooper DeJean. I think that he could absolutely be an outside cornerback. So if they need him to do that, I think he has the flexibility to do so. On the other side of things, we talk about the Eagles and say, hey, they got to be able to run the football, and they do. I went and I took a look at some of the stats and the data points from last year when they opened up the season against the Green Bay Packers, and it was one of those games where Hurts played well. Saquon Barkley I should say Saquon Barkley played well. A.J. Brown got his, and they were able to get a win there. That was the game that Jordan Love ended up getting hurt. But when I look at this game, if Philly's offense plays to its potential, I think they're going to win this football game. To me, the area where I feel the Green Bay Packers can have an advantage or at least disrupt what they want to do is when Jalen Hurts holds on to the ball a little bit longer. We've seen this so many times this season where he escapes the pocket, he's looking downfield, but he never feels like he has to throw the football. We've seen it so many times. Sometimes he'll scramble to the line of scrimmage. Sometimes he'll throw the football away. Sometimes he'll scramble and he'll pick up a couple of yards. I'm wondering if Jeff Hafley feels like the defense coordinator for the Green Bay Packers feels like he has the freedom to really designate a guy like Edgerrin Cooper to just spying Jalen Hurts, because Edgerrin Cooper's closing speed is so fast. And that would speed up Jalen Hurts' process when he is getting out of the pocket, when he's breaking the pocket, continuing to extend plays and get those little scrambles and everything like that. When you have a speed demon who is triggering downhill as a quarterback spy, that gives you a lot less time to not only make a decision, but even like get to the sideline and, pick up a couple of yards or safely throw it out of bounds or whatever that looks like. When you can fluster Hurts in that regard, that's when I think that you really have an opportunity to take advantage of this Eagles offense and really sort of stall their offense that way. So I wonder if that's a game plan that they're going to implement, because when Hurts has so much time to process deep down the field, it's not that he's always making the big time throws, but it's just almost guaranteeing that he's not going to make a mistake when you don't pressure him like that, because he's so smart and he's not going to put the ball in harm's way. But if you got Edgerrin Cooper screaming right into where you're going, cutting you off a lot faster than you thought you were going to, speeding up that process, do you start putting the ball into harm's way a little bit? Do you get an extra turnover here to give you an extra possession? And maybe that is what means the most in this game. So it's in Green Bay. I think it's going to be tight. I like your score of 23-20. I might go 27-25, something like that in this game. And I'll actually take the Packers. I'll take the Packers to bounce back. I'm going to say the Packers win this game.
I'm going to go Eagles 23-20, like you mentioned. I think there's a couple of keys here for the Packers. Number one is, look, Jeff Hafley's been messing around too with the placement of Micah Parsons in some of these obvious passing situations. And if he's just going to be obviously he's going to be off the edge most of the time in this game. But does he attack the interior three with Parsons at all, or does he let him try to beat Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata off the edge? And Rashawn Gary may need to have a big game too. This is also the exact game where I would say the spotlight is on these outside cornerbacks for the Packers, Carrington Valentine and Keyshawn Nixon against A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. This, to me, on their defense is the biggest question. Can they handle this matchup against these two receivers? Can they handle the Rams with Nakua and Devontae Adams, right? Teams with big-time receivers on the outside. Can the Packers handle that? Even, we saw the earlier game against the Dallas Cowboys with CeeDee Lamb and with George Pickens, right? And you go, man, they gave up 40 points in that game. That was kind of a problem. I think games like this against big-time receivers are going to be a good barometer of where this Packers defense really is at throughout all 11, but I think it's going to be a fantastic football game. I like the way the Eagles offense has made their adjustments. Kevin Patullo has made the adjustments, getting under center more, getting in heavier personnel more the last couple weeks. I'll take the Eagles by a field goal.
All right, so we've got a handful of games that we're disagreeing on this week, so might have some movement in the standings one way or the other when we're revisiting this a week from now. Appreciate everybody watching. Appreciate everybody watching live. That's been watching live, getting in on the chat. Fun to obviously see you guys talk about these games as we're talking about them here. If you don't have that PFF Plus subscription, you want to see all of the data points and the grades that we talked about here on the show and so much more, PFF NFL Show 25. That's how you get 25% off that PFF subscription and help support the show. If you are out there and you want to get involved with what we're doing here at PFF, sales@pff.com. We would love to hear from you and get to start that conversation there. I think that's it. A lot of games, a lot of exciting things that are happening this weekend. You guys just previewed everything that's going on in college football yesterday. We just previewed everything that's going on in the NFL. So however you are watching this weekend, enjoy it, everybody. For Dalton Wasserman, for everybody producing Behind the Glass, I'm Trevor Sikkema saying thank you guys so much for watching the PFF NFL show, and we will see you guys for the Grade Release show on Monday. See you then.